Yes, it is true. You have been April fooled. What a fun joke that I played. This video is actually going to be a video that celebrates my first year here on YouTube. I am going to be talking about things that I've learned, things that I've loved, things that I've loathed. And also my patrons submitted some questions for me to do like a little Q&A. So I'm answering some questions. And it's a little bit of a longer video, but I think that, I don't know, I guess it should be because of the subject matter. But yes, this is not going to actually be my last video. That was just a little bit of clickbait because it is April Fool's Day. So happy April Fool's Day. And I hope you enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to my channel. I posted a picture the other day on Instagram of this thing that I bought. Who am I? This outfit is something I never would have tried to wear 2 or 3 years ago. My only colors I wore were things like this. So this was a bright color for me, or I did black and gray and maybe white. Oh, and navy blue, always navy blue, but never anything this bright and like colorful. So that is definitely an exciting change for me. And I think it represents a lot of growth, which is an important theme for today's video. You saw the title, you know I am going to be talking about my last year on YouTube. About 2 weeks ago, it was my 1-year anniversary. Was it 2 weeks ago? 10 days ago from the time I am filming this. So I think it was March the 13th was the day I signed up. And March the 16th was the day that I posted my very first video. It has not been viewed by very many people, but when I posted it, I was so proud of it. It was a social commentary that I saw happening online in various spaces, and I wanted to speak out on it. And I can't even describe the feeling of, doing that, editing it up, releasing it to the world. It just felt like I was getting something off my chest. It started a process for me where I was using YouTube as a way of taking a lot of the things that I'd kept close to my chest for a really long time and unloading them on the internet and seeing if anybody else cared about them as much as I did. Over the past year, I have found that to work both for and against me, and I will talk about that process here. I also wanted to do something a little bit different than what I normally do, so I offered the opportunity to my Patreon audience to give me some questions to answer. So I'm gonna be doing a little Q&A. But yeah, let's get started with this 1-year anniversary video. So the first thing I wanna say is thank you to anybody who has pressed that good subscribe button. I have said this before. I said this at the end of last year. I'll say it again this time around. My goal for the end of 2021 was 100 subscribers. I was like, if I can get there and get maybe 500 to 1,000 people to watch each of my videos, that'll be great. I never in a million years thought I would get as many as I have gotten. I will say though that at some point I lost the plot, and I was like, well, if I don't get 100,000 in the first year, then I'm a failure. And I was talking to somebody the other day and I was like, yeah, I've been doing YouTube a little bit over the past year. And she was like, oh, really? I said, yeah. And she goes, you said you've been doing it for a year? And I was like, yeah, here's my account. And she goes, you got you met this many people in a year? And to me, I was like used to, success stories of 400,000, 300,000. I knew that it's possible to grow so much more, but I forgot that it's also possible not to grow. It's also possible to really, to struggle, to kind of find your footing, to try it and to feel like it's not for you. And so in that moment, I felt extremely blessed. I felt extremely favored that there are people out there who were like, I'll subscribe. And so I just want to say thank you to anybody that has pressed that subscribe button and has stuck with me over the past year. The reason I'm even able to do this is because of you. So thank you. All right, so let's get into what I have experienced over the past year, what my YouTube experience has been like. I kind of visited this about 6 months ago when I talked about my 6 months on YouTube. I do want to say that video was a little gloomy. Everything from like the background at the time to what I was wearing. I think I was wearing the identical one of this shirt, but it was black. I had some thoughts about the process at that time, but it was early on. I think it was like, was it October? It was October. And so here we are, we're about 6 months later, and this is the updated version of that video, I guess. So first thing I want to talk about are things that I've loved. I have to go back to my original statement that I made a couple moments ago about posting that video about millennials versus the world and the internet and all that stuff, and feeling like I really got something big off my chest in that moment. I have loved that process. Every video that I've made, every single video has been that process for me. Something that I normally would hold, something that I would have pushed down. You know, you have some people that deal with things by writing in journals. You have some people that will go in the studio and write a song and come out with an album. You have some people that will go and take pictures, they'll do a photograph. We all have different ways of dealing with different things that make us question the world, different things that make us sad, different things that make us happy. And for me, talking about it, making videos, intersplicing that with pictures and other videos and texts, that's like a form, that's my therapy. And so I have loved this channel and this platform as a means of doing that. Something that I've also loved is the ability to connect with people who are like me. So I've said before, the reason I started this channel was mostly because I did not have anybody in my life who I felt was really going through the things that I was going through the way I was going through them. And I thought that was a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing because sometimes when everybody's dealing with the same thing, it can sort of bring the vibe down in various ways. So like if we get together and we're all having job problems, then it's kind of like, okay. If we get together and we're all having man problems, then it's like, okay. You know, so I've been in those situations before where everybody in the group is dealing with the same issues the same way too. Because one of the things that I found out over time is just no, other people are dealing with them, but they're either keeping them very secret. They're only talking about them with one or two people. They don't feel the need to talk about it, so on and so forth. But at the time, I didn't know that. At the time, most of the people that were verbal with me about different things that I wanted to talk about were not coming from the same place as me. And so coming to this channel and sharing the things that I've shared and having people reach out and say, you got it. That's exactly it. That's exactly how I feel. That has been life-changing for me. It's been life-affirming for me. And so, yeah, that is something else that I've really loved. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about what I've loathed, what I have hated about this. Because as much as I have enjoyed the day-to-day freedom it gives me, as much as I've enjoyed the creative freedom it gives me, there have been some things that I obviously dislike. The first thing you guys can probably tell is the negative response that some of my content does receive. Sometimes I'll go to another creator's account, whether they be a lifestyle creator or a food creator or a mommy blogger or whatever, and I'll just luxuriate in the positivity of the comment section. And I was watching a video from Max and Maya Living, you know, Shameless Maya and her husband Max, and they were talking about how positive their community is and how much they love engaging with their comment section. I was like, must be nice. I know a lot of stuff that I share, I know people won't always agree, and that's fine. But when it comes down to just like attacks on my character, that has taken some time to get used to, and I don't know if I'll ever get used to it. I've definitely thought about, you know, like I posted a while ago with that long letter that I posted in my on my community page. I've definitely thought about, you know, just changing the content that I do on the channel completely because I really, really don't like that response. I don't think anybody would. I honestly don't think anybody would. And anybody who's like, oh, you got to ignore the haters. I don't think that they have maybe ever been through what it's like to have hundreds of people attacking your character. Especially when it's something that if I go on another platform, say TikTok, I know that I'm not the only one going through these things. I know I'm not the only one dealing with these things. I know I'm not the only one that they're happening to, but I think TikTok and YouTube attract a different type of user. And I've talked about that before. Anyway, so that's definitely something that I have hated. I have loathed it. It has taken a while for me to get used to. I don't know if I'll ever get used to it. I think for me, the answer is to vary the types of content that I do. So, you know, the past week I uploaded like a little vlog. And of course I had some of my little story time ridiculousness also married with that. But I think taking the time to make content that is made to elicit a positive response and not just something that I just want to get off my chest, I think that will definitely change the kind of reaction that I get from my audience. Just to take it back to Max and Maya, like even though they were a couple talking about marriage issues, they are a couple, they're living this idyllic life, they're very aspirational. So of course, they're going to get positive comments and positive reactions. So long story short, if you want positive reactions, you have to put positive content out into the world, even if it's not always what you want to talk about. You got to give yourself that space. You got to give yourself that opportunity for people to respond to you in a better way. And so that is something I definitely want to do more of going forward. Okay, so now what have I learned? So I just talked about a lesson that I've learned a couple seconds ago as far as like, if I don't like the negative comments, then I need to change my content from time to time. But here's something that I've really learned. What you put out in the world, never take it for granted. Never believe that like, oh, I'm just doing something and like nobody's paying attention. It is what it is. especially if you create digitally, you are creating a digital footprint that is going to affect your opportunities going forward in this space. So one of the biggest lessons that I learned, again, going back to my content here on this platform, is that what you say and how you choose to say it, and that can really affect you. Like how you choose to say something, like visually, it can really sometimes help what you say go over a lot better. But what you say and how you choose to say it is going to affect your opportunities, whether it's collaborative opportunities, whether it's sponsorship opportunities. I used to work with this company that was like, we can get you brand deals. We can work with you to get some sponsorships. And I was like, okay, cool. They were able to get me a couple, but there were a lot of sponsorships and brands that I know they pitched me to, and the brands passed. They passed. One specifically that you see a lot on a lot of channels is, I'll call them out because like we probably will never work together. I don't care. But they tried to pitch me to them a lot, and was like, no. Like, okay, and I get it. I'm like, okay, like I understand. When you put content out in the world, there is a very high chance that somebody will see it and somebody will watch it. And if you look at like the lives of influencers and like what's possible, I would hope that you would want the most opportunity for yourself as possible. Like that's what I want. And so when I think about, once again, going back to my content, I'm like, okay, how can I make it so that when I'm pitched to a brand, the answer is yes and what else does she want? Yes, we will do it. Now I have gotten to work with some pretty great brands. They've reached out to me on their own, but you know, if you're in this sponsorship influencer space, like you want the chance to work with people again and again. You want the chance to really cultivate and build professional relationships. And a lot of times brands won't even bet on you if they know like, oh, well, she's not going to get the views, or it's not going to do this, or it's not going to do that. So basically what I've really learned is if you really want to grow in this kind of space, make sure that your content matches who you want to grow into, because people are watching, collaborators are watching, brands are watching, and you could miss out on opportunities. So just be aware of what you're putting out into the world. So that kind of lines up with the last thing I said, but the only difference to me is that if brands and companies don't really want to collaborate or work with you, that really affects your money. So for me, I'm like, all right, how can I once again shift my perspective and my angle going into, you know, my future of content creation to where I'm more attractive when it comes to collaborating with brands and sponsors.
So I've actually thought about this statement a lot since first recording it. And what dawned on me is that my content is always going to be a reflection of who I am and where I am in life. I was on TikTok, of course, the other day, and I saw this woman make a video, and she basically said, it is so possible to make content without sharing too much of your personal life. And, you know, it's keeping your personal life private and, you know, making your content just about whatever. And people were like, is it really? Wow. You know, I would love to do something like that. And I was like, okay, sure. You know, I'll listen to what she has to say, because I do think that sometimes the retaliation that I've received on some of the things that I've shared has been because I don't have a shiny, bright, beautiful personal life. And so if I share that, then I'm naturally going to get negative responses to it, because everybody thinks that they're a wizard and they can fix everything, or everybody's a critic. And so I was listening to her, and then I said, well, let me go check out more of her content. And I went and looked at her YouTube channel, her Instagram, and I saw that she's happily married. She's very wealthy. Most of her content is about wealth tips, how to build businesses, how to do. And I said, me and this woman could not be any more different. And while I respect what she's doing, you can only make content about things that you are familiar with. And as I move through life, I'm sure I'll get familiar with other things and have other stuff going on. But the content that I've made over the last year has represented my reality at this time. And so, yeah, a lot of it's been based on my personal life, because that was the biggest part of my reality, especially even now when I'm like working for myself and with myself all day long. I definitely have more to say about my personal reality. But anyway, so I thought about that statement, and I was like, I'm not really going to push myself, though, to change too much, because I always do want to be authentic. And I always want to make sure that I'm continuing to make things that I myself, you know, want to watch. The only thing I could possibly change is how I relate them from time to time. But yeah, I don't really see too much change coming, because yeah, I am who I am. Not to sound like Popeye, but you know, I can only do my thing. And really, at the end of the day, it takes all kinds. Like, her content is great. My content is great. Yes, we're going to get different responses. We're going to get different opportunities. And should my life take a different turn, then I'll make content about that. But for right now, it's just going to be a little bit of time before I can shift things around because I want to make sure and always be authentic. So yeah, I thought about that after I recorded this.
All right, so now let's get to the Q&A. So my patrons, they sent in a couple questions and they were all really, really good questions, but I don't want to keep you guys here all day. So I'm going to answer a couple of them here. The rest of them will be posted in an extended video on my Patreon. Question number 1, would you ever go back to LA? So anybody who knows me knows that I tried to get to Los Angeles for the longest time. Like honestly, for 9 years after I graduated college, I was trying to figure out, how do I get out there? Like, how do I live there? During the recession, LA was very scary. Like a lot of the news we were getting in other parts of the country about Los Angeles it wasn't great news. I know for a fact that at the time, from the recession until about 2015, 2016, I was really working in and out of the educational space here in Texas. So I was like, okay, well, if I go out there, that's probably what I'll still end up doing. But I know there was a hiring freeze in the biggest district out there for a long time. That just the money wasn't there, the opportunities weren't there. And so I had no idea how I would make that move, but I knew I always wanted to live there. One of my dreams was like to get on a show and be like a writer for a show, so on and so forth. And I couldn't figure out how to make it work. And it really did take 9 years for me to figure it out. And so when I got out there, I was a little disappointed that my dream did not match the reality of living there. But I want to say this. It's not that LA was a bad city. It's not the people of LA were bad people. I can't even say like the dating scene out there really let me down, because just to be real with you, the dating scene here isn't that great either. But the difference is that in LA, people were a lot more open-minded. So I always joke and say that I could have gotten a stamp in my passport for every single nationality of man that I was able to date or to talk to or to communicate with. That's not possible down here in the South, or at least it's not possible for me. It hasn't been my reality. But yeah, so when I think about the dating scene out there, I'm like, it actually was a positive thing for me to experience. I mean, yes, hookup culture is terrible, blah, 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 but it was definitely eye-opening. It was liberating in a lot of ways, so I can't be too mad at it. Also, when it comes to the people, while I didn't have the same types of friends as I have in Texas and Los Angeles, as far as like, racial background, as far as like familiar background, as far as like life experience, we really all were coming from different angles. That in and of itself was a very dynamic experience also, because, I had to be out of my comfort zone a lot. And while sometimes that was very scary, please see the story about me vacationing with the girls in Joshua Tree. In fact, I need to do an extended story time on that. But yeah, so sometimes it was very scary, but sometimes it was like, oh, okay, cool. Like I enjoyed having this experience. It wouldn't have happened if I didn't step outside of my comfort zone. So that being said, the biggest issue that I have with LA is how much it costs to live there. Right now where I'm living, just doing I would say 8 to 10 YouTube videos a month is enough for me to live comfortably. And for me, that is the most important thing. After so many years of feeling like I was just jumping from paycheck to paycheck, using my last few dollars, really, really struggling and scrounging to survive, working 3 jobs at a time to try and make ends meet, living in the South is like a welcome release. Like I've never been into the whole black girl luxury thing. Girls are like, it doesn't really strike me as anything that I have to have or have to experience. Because for me right now, I'm just into black girl living comfortably, like being able to, see something online and buy it and know that I'm going to also be able to eat, being able to pay my rent days in advance. Like these are just things that I was not able to do when I lived in Los Angeles. I was always struggling financially. So to answer the person's question, I absolutely would live back in LA. I think there's so much more to discover. There's so much more to be done. It's so much more socially and geographically dynamic than where I'm living now. But financially, I can't. Okay. No, right now. I cannot do it. And I don't even know if I want to. Like, I think I would go out there to work and stay for short periods of time, but I would have to have something to work for or someone that wanted to work with me to do it. So I don't even know if that's like a real scenario, but that would be the only way that I would really go and settle there, is if I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, like you have a way to make money here and live comfortably, because I cannot go back to how stressed out and taxed for money I was, between the years 2016 and 2020. I will not do that to myself again. So I will go to LA, but only if I could afford to live there. That's it. Next question is, what are my favorite TV shows at the time and movies? So I really am into these Netflix documentaries about stupid people and their money. I just finished watching Bad Vegan, and I actually want to do a dedicated video on it because my jaw was on the floor the entire time. And before that, I watched Inventing Anna. And before that, oh no, after Inventing Anna, I watched Worst Roommate Ever. I think the Netflix documentary situation is always very, very interesting and very good. It's funny to me whenever Netflix announces they're going to raise their prices and people are like, oh, they don't even make good content anyway. And it's like, okay, you can be mad that their prices are going up, but shut up about them not making good content. They be making good content. They probably need to chill on the prices. But yeah, they definitely make good content. So that's what I've been watching mostly. I've also watched a lot of the new sitcoms that are out. For example, Grand Crew. Nobody talks about Grand Crew. I don't even know if it's been canceled or what, but it's very, very good. It's very funny. And I do watch Abbott Elementary. I will say I have some PTSD still from working in education, so I can't always watch it and just enjoy it. But I do watch it like when I can. Okay, so now these questions are about me and YouTube in general. So someone asked, how's my life changed since I started YouTube? So the first thing I wanna say is freedom. I definitely am enjoying the ability now to not feel like every day is so stressful. I mean, I wasn't in the best of mental health when I was working as a teacher. And so, yeah, that's been great. Outside of that, though, I haven't really had any changes. My financial situation it was really a lateral move, meaning that I make about as much on YouTube as I did teaching, give or take $100 or so. So that really tells you how little they pay teachers. Yeah, I definitely didn't come into being on YouTube and doing this whole thing and just step into the money. And again, I think that's related to my content and maybe not even necessarily what I was saying, but how I was saying it. So I'm working on that. But in that way, my life didn't really change. It also didn't really change in the ways that I've seen other people's lives change when they start doing content like this, being able to do other kinds of creative work. I still feel like I'm really a freshman in this game. And I feel like I have a long way to go when it comes to this type of thing. And so, yeah, the only way that I really felt a life change, and I'm very grateful for it, was when it came to my ability to kind of choose my own hours and make my own day. And that has done wonders for my mental health, like I said, because I was watching something the other day and they were like, it can take 2 to 5 years to recover from burnout. And oh my God, in 2020, when I had to come home because of what was going on with the pandemic, I was so, 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 so burnt out. I had been giving of myself and not being really financially compensated for it. I hadn't really been emotionally compensated for it. Yeah, I just was burnt out from a lot of things. And one of the things that YouTube helps me do is like recover from that burnout. So I'm grateful for that. And that's really how my life has changed. So nothing big yet, but even in that small thing, letting me just have a bit of rest from the years previous in my life, I feel blessed there. So the next question was, what did I do to grow on YouTube? And I'll be honest with you, I feel like it was being authentic. I also think it was offering people something different. I think people will always respond to that. And I think it was the topics that I chose to talk about. I definitely have a little bit more of a filter now when it comes to what I'm willing to talk about online. But I think last year I was very smart about what topics were trending and what people were going to click on. The TikTok algorithm learned me when it came to what content to make and what content to kind of leave on the cutting room floor. And so very early on, I was using like different search tools and, just paying attention to the conversations that were happening in message boards here and there. And I knew, okay, this is what people are clicking on. So this is what I'll talk about. And so I think a combination of all of those things, being myself, knowing what to talk about to get people to click and want to come to my channel, and then talking about things that maybe other people weren't even saying at all. I think a combination of all of those is how I grew on YouTube. Okay, so the next question is interesting because it's actually about my audience. One of my patrons wanted to know, what do I think about my audience and how do I think they found me and why do I think they follow along with me? So that's something that you guys can answer if you'd like in the comments below. The things that I've been told are what I said kind of in the intro, which is people saying, aha, yes, I knew I wasn't crazy. Thank you for saying that. So I think that makes up a lot of my audience. I have some people that are like, oh, you're just interesting to watch. Mm-hmm. Some people say that they learn things from me. I don't think I've done enough, I want to say educational commentary type videos as of late. I need to do more. But when it comes down to it, I really don't know exactly like what people like about my channel. So please feel free to say so in the comments below. Okay, so this was an important question for me and I had to think about it for a little bit. But someone said, and I'll just go ahead and read it out loud. I absolutely love your content and find your voice so necessary for women. A common criticism that I have noticed in your comments or in reaction videos to your content is that your content comes across as self deprecating or not evolved from your past experiences. I'm curious what your opinion on that take is. The first thing I want to say is
Okay, here's another little freeze frame moment really quickly. So, before I get into how I feel about self deprecation, and I'm about to dive into it here in a second, I want to make something clear. Once again, after I had already edited this and, was looking to get it uploaded, I went back and watched it and I was like, you know what? I think the issue people have with self deprecation is actually a lot of people struggle with how they talk to themselves. So while I might just use it, as I'm about to describe why I use it so much when I make videos, while I might just use it in public and in public conversation, it is not representative of how I speak to myself when I am alone and my own internal monologue. For proof of this, just yesterday I was in the bathroom and I had washed my face, I had exfoliated, and I was looking at myself in the mirror. And I started to sing a song in my head and I was like, I love my face. I love my face. I look so pretty. I love my face. And that's not even kidding. That's really the song that I decided to make up. And I realized, I said, oh, okay. When people say, oh, you're so self-deprecating, they think of like negative self-talk, and they think you're also probably talking to yourself the way that you talk to yourself on camera. They think that's your internal monologue as well. And they're probably imagining that it's got to be like hell inside your head if you are saying the same things to yourself inwardly that you are saying outwardly. But as I'm about to explain, my self-deprecation really comes from, it's sort of like a mirror of what I think people on the outside of me are going to say about me. Because if it's just what I'm saying about me, it is very much like the song I made up in the bathroom. I am my number one biggest fan. I've been that way since I was a kid. So yeah, let me let me finish explaining here in the video.
I will be self-deprecating till I die, honestly. It has been self-deprecation and dark humor have been the things that have gotten me through some of the toughest times of my life, some of the most embarrassing times of my life. I am not afraid to say things that I think alarm other people. They don't affect me the same way. They don't bother me. I also want to say this. I have gotten a comment before because back in the day when I first started changing my hair a lot on this channel, people would say, whenever you make a comment about like your wig or, your makeup or something, I find it bothers me because why do you feel the need to qualify yourself so negatively before you start talking, right? And I responded to someone and I said, you know what? I am so used to walking in a room and having 5 or 6 different audible reactions to how I look every single time I come in. They're positive reactions, quizzical reactions, negative reactions. I'm so used to it that I feel like I need to say something first before you do. You know what I mean? Especially with the last job that I had, I worked with a lot of children who hadn't had a lot of exposure to Black people, to Black women, to Black hair. And they said some of the sauciest, most ridiculous things to me about my hair. And so every year was this opportunity for me to take them from real ignorance when it came to me and by extension other Black women and how we change and what we do and our gift of transformation, taking them from that place of ignorance to a place of appreciation or a place of understanding that it is not their place to make certain comments. I do still understand that certain people might see you when you change your hair, your makeup, or whatever, and they're gonna feel the need to comment. And sometimes it might be really negative. So when I self-deprecate, a lot of times it's because I already know it's coming and I'm gonna say it before you wanna say it. So I know there was a couple videos where I was like, before we continue, let's talk about this wig here. Yes, I'm doing color, and it's so funny because underneath that comment about why do you always have to bring up what hair you're doing? Like, we get it, you have different hair. There was a comment that said, you look like a old auntie from church in that wig. So I know what it's like to get people just feeling like they can say whatever to you. And what I want people to know is, I know that I know that you probably have an opinion about what I'm doing. Here's my opinion. Here's where I got the wig from. Let's move on. So my self-deprecation oftentimes is really my way of calling out the elephant in the room, whatever that elephant might be. And my life experience of 38 years as someone who has often been openly criticized because I'm the only one like me in a room or because I'm doing something that people didn't expect, my experience lets me know that if I don't say it first, someone else might say it. And so I know that can come off as weird, especially when I'm dealing with people who didn't plan on saying anything, who had no comment. It's like, why you say that? Well, nobody gonna say nothing about you. But I think it is a hair trigger response. I think it is a defense mechanism. And unfortunately, because of my life and like things that have happened to me, I'm probably always gonna do it. It doesn't bother me though at all. I really find it hilarious. Like when I go back and watch the videos, I'm like, why I say that about my wig like that? That's funny. I think there is a line between like self-deprecation and like self-hate. And I think that people that aren't like self-deprecators, I think they hear any kind of critical shot you might take at yourself as, oh, you're insulting yourself. You've been, and I just don't view life that way. So I think it's just, we'll just have to agree to disagree on that. When it comes to not evolving, I have a short little story about that. A couple years ago, I was working as an English teacher. And when I was a teacher, kids would always say to me, why are you here? Why are you here? Like, we get why he's here, why she's here, but what brought you here? Or they would say things to me like, what are you going to do when you grow up for your job? This can't be it. And I would always tell them, oh, I'm here with you guys. I really like being blah, blah, blah. And they were like, no. Mm-mm. And one little boy told me, he goes, you should do YouTube. You could vlog. And I was like, what? I didn't even really know what that word was. This is like back in like 2016, 20. I didn't know. I didn't watch that kind of content. All I knew was like David Dobrik, I think that's his name, and the Vlog Squad. I just associated it with like a very like juvenile way of, now it has become very sexy. Okay, vlogging has become extremely sexy in the past few years, but I associated it with like that prank content, that silly, like I was like, what vlog? That's so weird. He was like, well, you could really do anything you want. I bet people would watch. You'd get a lot of subscribers. And I was like, no. So here we are 5 years later, and I'm celebrating 1 year on this platform. And so for anybody that's like, oh, she seems not to evolve, I think that child would disagree with you. I think I would disagree with you. I have come a long way as a person. And anytime somebody comments on my growth, the one question I have to ask is, do you know where I started? And do you know where I'm going? If the answer to both of those is no, then you don't get to comment on my growth. You don't have a place. Another quick little story about that is when I was coaching, I was a gymnastics coach for a little while. And one of my mentor coaches was like, if you find yourself getting frustrated with how far your students are progressing, you need to think about them in part whole terms instead of whole part. And I was like, what? Part whole means that you celebrate step by step. Whole part means you don't give them any credit until they reach the finish line. If you look at things whole part, then what you're going to do is you might frustrate your students. You might frustrate yourself. You might lose faith. You might lose energy. You know, why can't this child figure out how to do this today? But if you look at it part whole, if you celebrate 1 out of 10 the same way you celebrate steps 10 out of 10, then not only are you going to make the process more enjoyable for yourself as a coach, you're going to be less frustrated, and the child will thrive with you. By extension of that way of thinking, I don't believe we're all supposed to get to the same place, but I do think we've been trained by society to believe that we are all supposed to get to the same place. Meaning that, especially like for a woman of my age, if I come on here and I talk about, oh, whoa, I'm single, there's people out there that are like, she won't really have grown and evolved until we see her in a committed relationship. But that's not everybody's end. Everybody doesn't get a happily ever after. For some of us, it's just learning to deal with the potholes and the accidents and the ridiculousness along the way. So I think once again, if you're thinking about, okay, this is the end goal that I see for her in my mind, and she hasn't reached that yet, so she hasn't grown, then you're not looking at things the right way. But if you're willing to look at me and not as the projection of me that you have in your mind, and you're willing to say, man, when she started off, she was in this dark, dingy room. She didn't have no lights really. But now look at her. She done got a lens. She done got some different audio. Okay. She changed her hair. She's wearing colors. Part whole. I'm going to celebrate with this person every step of their growth instead of coming up with an idea of what I think their growth would look like and judging them against that until they get to that arbitrary goal that I've set in my own mind. That has nothing to do with them really and everything to do with me. So all of that wrapped up to say, anybody who looks at me and says, she doesn't seem to be evolving, you don't know where I'm going. You don't know what my final form will be. So you don't get to comment on how you think I'm getting there. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Okay, another question that I get a lot that I wanted to answer is, what do you think, or what do your friends think about your story times? And let's talk about this for a second, because people are assuming that they don't know that I'm talking about the stories. They don't know that I'm retelling it. They're very aware, and they've also heard it a lot. A lot of times when I go retell a story, I'm like, okay, girl, yeah. And then I talked about this, and they're like, oh, yes. Yes. I also want to say that the people that I know in my personal life, it's kind of divided. I have some people that will watch the content and they're like, oh yeah, that was cute. And then I have some people that know that I do it and they're not moved. It's not their cup of tea. And then I have some people that still don't know it all, because I just really started posting about it to Instagram. For a while, I wouldn't post about it. And that's because, again, I go back to what I said originally. I didn't know who in my close friendship circle I could share some of the things that I've shared with an audience of strangers. It felt way more intimate bringing it up with people that I see or that I talk to every day or every other day, right? And so that being said, they know that I talk about the stories. They know what I say. I believe that when I talk about my friends in any of the stories, they are mentioned very, very quickly. I never use their real names, and they're normally not the main character of any of the stories. Normally, the main character is the horrible man that I was dealing with at the time. And as far as them, a lot of them I have not spoken to in 3 or 4 years. Like, those are very, very old situations for the most part, except for the most recent one. But they are people that I will most likely never speak to again. And so I really don't care if they were to hear about it or whatever, because we're not in contact. We're not going to be in contact. And even with them, I don't tell their names. I don't give where they work. I don't. If somebody was to figure out who I was talking about ever, the conversation would probably go a lot like this. Hey, so I just listened to your latest story time. Is it about the artist Boboski Wattenton? Is that who you think it's about? Yeah, I mean, it sounds just like him. I guess we'll never know. That's exactly how the interaction would go. I will never give away anybody's exact anything. And that's where I'm at on that. So I don't think anybody really cares when it comes down to it. And I also think they know the name of the game. Like, they know that, like, I am creating content in order to make money. And so that being said, it's like, oh yeah, I know you talked about that, and I understand why. And I appreciate, like, how you said ... So okay, here we are at the end of the Q&A. Thank you so much if you stayed all the way to the end. I want to share one more question that I got, which was, what are the happiest achievements in my life and career so far? For me, number one is going to be figuring out a way to make money using just my brain and my mouth. I always daydreamed when I was a kid about being a writer of some sort. I always, in a year ago, I asked myself the question, is it possible to make money off of making videos? It was something I knew how to do. I was teaching kids how to do it. I was doing it for my campus and for my district. Is it possible to do it for me? It's been a big question mark for the longest time. How can I use my skills to make a living? And I figured it out. Now, again, like I said, I'm not where I want to be. But when I look back to 5, 4, 3, 2, even 1 year ago, I'm so much further than where I started. And I want that to be true of the next year of my life as well. So that is currently my proudest achievement and also my greatest hope. Once again, thank you for watching if you watched all the way to the end, and I will see you soon with another video.